Generative AI was built on the largest intellectual property theft that the world has ever seen. It's not an allegation, it's not even arguable. That's a matter of factual record. Every book that's available on the internet, every article that's been written, every photograph, piece of music, all of these have been scraped, ingested, and compressed into commercial products without permission, without compensation, and without so much as even notification to the people who created it. And the companies that did this, well, they've spent years constructing elaborate arguments as to why this wasn't really theft at all. But a new study has just exposed something that cuts through all the legal maneuvering and exposes the deeper problem on how these systems actually work. Let's explore what happened, how tech companies have tried to argue around it, and what this case actually means. Here's the reality that got sanitized by marketing language. In order to build ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and every other large language model, companies needed enormous volumes of training data, lots of it. So they took as much as they could. They scraped books from pirate websites. They ingested entire archives of copyrighted journalism. They scooped up academic papers, private blogs, forum posts, creative writing, photography, media, song lyrics, everything. None of this was licensed. None of this was paid for, and the creators weren't asked in advance. So when you use ChatGPT to write an email, you're benefiting from the compressed knowledge of millions of authors who never consented and will never see a dime. That's really the fundamental foundation. That's what this whole industry is built on. Now, the big tech companies knew this was legally precarious, so they crafted a narrative. They said, we don't copy books, we learn from them, just like humans do. It's a very clever reframe. When you read a novel, you don't memorize it word for word. You absorb the ideas, the styles, the concepts. That's learning, not copying. And learning from publicly available material is legal. So the argument goes, AI models do the same thing. They don't store copyrighted works, they learn the patterns. They transform the input into something new, and that's fair use and it's innovation. People in the industry have said that it's over for AI if they can't train on copyrighted material. The entire industry's legal strategy rests on the distinction between copying and learning. But a team of Stanford and Yale researchers just demonstrated that this distinction is a fiction. Researchers tested 4 major AI models: GPT 4.1, Gemini 2.5 Pro, Grok 3, and Claude 3.7 Sonnet. And they asked them to reproduce copyrighted books. And they did. Claude reproduced the books with 96% accuracy, almost word for word. Gemini spat out Harry Potter at about 75% accuracy. Claude reproduced Orwell's 1984, which is still under copyright, at over 94% accuracy. These aren't summaries, they're not transformations, they're reconstructions of copyrighted text with near perfect fidelity. You can't claim that you learned from a book when you recite it almost word for word. That's storage and retrieval with extra steps. The defense that we learn, we don't copy, really has just collapsed. But here's what most of the coverage of the study misses. The copyright issue is a symptom of a deeper architectural flaw. When these models were built, the training data was compressed into billions of numerical weights. The original sources were destroyed, and what remains is a statistical smoothie of human knowledge with no connection to where all of it came from. The model can't tell you where it learned something. It can't distinguish a peer review study from a Reddit post. It can't verify its own claims, and it doesn't know whether the information is old or from a decade ago. And this is why the models can produce copyrighted books, but have no awareness that they're doing it. They're not retrieving Harry Potter, they're reconstructing it from the compressed numerical patterns, with no reference to the source, no attribution, and no accountability. And this creates cascading problems beyond just copyright, the biggest being hallucinations. Because there's no source to check against, unverifiable claims exist because there's no citation trail. Knowledge becomes stale because updating it means retraining the whole thing from scratch, and no accountability because when something goes wrong, you can't really trace why. The intellectual property theft and the technical limitations come from the same root cause. These systems were designed to erase the connections between the knowledge and the source. But there is a different approach. There's a different architecture, and it's called Cache Augmented Generation. Instead of compressing all the knowledge into the model weights and discarding the sources, with CAG, you keep the source documents intact and retrievable. The model reasons over the retrieved content in real time, content that can be licensed, cited, verified, and updated. This isn't theoretical, this is in production. and it's how you build AI that can actually show its work. The question is whether the industry will adopt it or keep defending an architecture that's built on theft and designed for amnesia. Generative AI didn't have to be this way. The choice to scrape everything, destroy the sources, and argue about it later is a choice that was made, and it was a very profitable one. But the cracks are showing. The legal battles are mounting, and the technical limitations are becoming impossible to ignore. What happens next depends on whether we keep accepting that AI hides its sources or start demanding that AI earns our trust.